Consider this, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. We're conducting an experiment over these next couple of weeks. We have wrangled together 4 state senators from, I wouldn't say all 4 corners of the state, but pretty darn close. As close as you can get sometimes. And I've always had this theory that getting them together during the session was like herding cats because they're so busy and they're so driving from place to place. So we have 4 state senators here today. I want to introduce you to them. They'll be on 2 shows, one week after the other, talking about the big issues this session. Senator Vicki McDonald of Rockville is relative newcomer to the unicameral. She's the newcomer on our panel anyway. She was appointed to the legislature in 2001. She replaced her husband, Rick, who passed away, and then she was elected in her own right in 2002. She represents District 41. She's vice chair of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee and is member of the Education and Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committees. She graduated from Phillips High School. Is that in Nebraska?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I didn't look it up on a map. I figured it was. She attended UNL. She is currently a financial advisor in Grand Island and is involved in a myriad of activities. Senator David Landis holds the esteem of being, when he was first elected to the unicameral, the youngest elected official in the state, or pretty darn close.
Pretty darn close.
Right now he is serving the people of the District 46 in Lincoln in his 7th term in the unicameral. He chairs the Revenue Committee, serves on 3 others, General Affairs, Urban Affairs, and Committee on Committees. I always wondered what that was. He has a law degree from UNL, a Master's of Public Administration from UNO right here, and also is an adjunct faculty member here and at the UNL College of Law. He's held a number of other posts, and while he loves his days on the political stage, I think he loves his evenings on the theatrical stage. He is quite an actor. Now we move to the other side of the dais, and there's no particular reason this is not a political one side or the other. This is not, male-female thing. Senator Pam Brown, thank you for being with us today. She's from Omaha, District 6. She's in her 3rd term in the unicameral. Her committees, Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs, Transportation and Telecommunications, Intergovernmental Cooperation, we should always have that, I believe, and Legislative Program Evaluation. She graduated from Broken Bow. I know that's in Nebraska, high school there. She graduated from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She is a consultant for training, strategic planning, and organizational development. Something I need to work on is my organizational development. She serves on the National Conference of State Legislatures Task Force on Genetic Technologies. That's more maybe than you wanted to know, but I think it's important to get to know our people because, these people do a lot for us. We have a lot of things to talk about.
And Gene Tyson.
Gene, I think it's that whole regional center flap that's got me forgetting you. I know you're going to be wanting to talk about that. Gene Tyson, he is from Norfolk. He represents the voters of District 19.
Yes.
Okay, you are vice chairman of the Banking, Commerce, and Insurance Committee, and you serve on Judiciary, Building Maintenance, and Executive Board. You graduated from Creighton University. Nucor Steel was your last place of employment before you retired. You were a sales manager there, and you are a veteran of the U.S. Air Force.
Yes.
And a published author.
A published author, and that would be?
Oh, that was a long time ago. That was ancient history. McGraw-Hill published a book that I wrote on management of accounts receivables.
I don't think I'm going to read that book. I have enough trouble keeping up with the legislature.
It has a few dry spots.
Okay. Now the pleasantries are over, and I have been so rude to you, Gene. I'll make it up to you. I want to run through, just first, your gut feeling of the session of what is going to be the thorniest issue that you will personally have to deal with. So I'm going to start with the ranking sort of person, chairman of the Revenue Committee. We have another chair here, but thorniest issue.
I think the early session will be dominated by a series of social justice issues. Among those, I think, will be the fetal cell research issue. It's not a thorny issue for me. I have a very clear feeling about it, but I regard it as something that will be a trauma for the legislature, and I think that'll be an early one that we'll have.
Senator McDonald?
Well, we have a couple of bills that are still on the floor from last year, and one of them is concealed carry, and then, of course, the gambling bill, so we'll take those up early.
And those are going to cause some angst?
Absolutely.
Okay. Senator Tyson?
Well, overshadowing the whole short session, I think, is budget.
Right.
And other than that, we have lethal injection. We have the stem cell research issue that Dave mentioned. We have concealed carry. There's a whole bunch of bills, but I think that the thoughts of people all the time will be on budget because they impact every other bill that may or may not be passed.
Absolutely.
Oh, also Lincoln Correctional Center.
Okay. And Pam, what do you see as the hot
Well,
button?
obviously it's going to be the budget, and it gets more difficult each time. I think people sort of focus in, well, last session we had to cut $800 million out of the budget, but we'd already cut money out of the budget. And so each time we come back and have to cut again, it becomes more and more difficult, and you're getting further and further into the meat of things. Then another issue that I think we're going to have to grapple with is how we continue to grow the state and develop jobs in the state.
Okay, now the game plan is that we're going to tackle some of these topics that, in a way, many of them are budget related. But we're going to get more on just the issues today, and then next week we're going to talk budget, revenue, taxes, those really hard ones in these days. And I guess one of the first things I want to talk about is let's just get into the fetal cell issue. What is the bill that remains sort of on the docket that will be taken up? Senator Landis, since you brought it up.
Is that 602?
The number eludes me.
Well, there's
It's
a
Arnie Sussman's
512,
priority bill.
and then there's a 602 on human cloning.
It is a ban on the research, and it's also a ban on the use of the products of fetal cell tissue research, so that you couldn't do the research in Nebraska if you were involved with or using fetal cells from an aborted fetus, and if you had a medicine that was derived from that source, you could not prescribe or use that medicine in Nebraska.
Is that a clear portion of this proposal? So what does that mean?
Well, we already have a number of medications. All the medications for polio are derived from fetal cells, and so. But those previous medicines are exempted. But I think that you get into a real interesting dilemma if this is truly a moral issue that we have to stop, as the proponents of the bill would have us believe. Then how can we say that these medications are okay because they happen to come about prior to the ban, and anything that comes about after the ban is different? But you're really talking about two different issues: the fetal cell, which the bill is not really being considered directly yet, and cloning, which is a different procedure.
Right, well, we'll get to the cloning, but on the fetal cell issue, so there's two parts of the same bill. I just want to be clear on that, so that if you pass one as it stands now, that you would not only be outlawing fetal cell research from aborted fetuses in the state of Nebraska, but you would also say any fruits of the, what are they saying?
Fruits of the poison tree.
Fruits of the poison tree. Those drugs that are developed anywhere else in the United States or the world, after the time you pass this bill, could not be used by Nebraskans?
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons I oppose the bill. I think I'm in the minority, knowing what we knew about the body, but that's right. I'm an opponent of the bill on both of those scores.
Senator McDonald?
The thing is, they're two different issues, and it's very difficult to separate those. And to me, they should be separated. They should not be on the same bill.
Is there a chance that they'll be separated?
With 25 votes, you can do anything you want.
Okay, we know that. Now, getting to that point, is there a chance that they could be separated?
I doubt it.
There's a chance, but there won't be, and the reason is the 25-vote majority is in the proponents, the supporters of the bill, and I don't think they're going to want to minimize or cut back on the content of the bill. That I think they feel they have a majority of votes, and I think, in fact, they do have a majority of votes. It's the question of whether or not they'll be able to get a chance to get the vote to enact with the majority they have the bill that they've written, and that's their bill. I mean, those 25 votes, that's their bill.
So that's a done deal?
The question is always about the 60 days and whether or not you'll get the opportunity. Gene's sitting on a bill that has 25 votes, but it'll be, or more. Problem is, will he get his day in court to get a final vote on it?
Just
and
so.
60 days will
I
be the
have to
problem.
get 32 votes or more for
On-
cloture.
On which bill?
LB 265, which is concealed carry.
Concealed carry, to be able to carry a concealed handgun after
Yes.
you go through a number of hoops, according to the bill. It's not
Infinite
just-
number of hoops.
So, okay, so the question is on that and maybe many other issues? Because this is what we call, for those that, if you consider 60 days a short session compared to the 90-day session that we had last year, we alternate every year, if my
It
legislative...
can seem long.
So the budget, because it will overshadow a lot of this, may mean that some of these will continue to bounce from session to session. On the fetal cell, and I don't want to kind of drive it into the ground, but there is concern from the medical community, which is a growing component of our economic force in Nebraska about this and how we could lose a large number of research. I know those that vote on moral issues don't necessarily, that's just not anything for them to consider, but is that an issue, or is that something that might change, the fact that it is one of our growing components and we are looking at the economy?
My prediction is it wouldn't change a single vote. The votes are determined on a different basis than the economic impact of the research.
It's their moral
Either you
position.
regard the research as immoral, or you regard it as, in my case, a moral imperative. To me, it's what will cure diseases that are killing people, and that's a moral imperative from my view, exactly the mirror image of a proponent who would regard it as a moral imperative
Not
to
to
oppose.
do so.
That's right. Economic development is going to be a non-starter
On that one,
on
okay.
votes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't beat that one into the ground. Now, on concealed carry, since you brought it up, you have the support for that?
Yes,
in
I
terms
have,
of
I have
votes?
more than sufficient. I have a pad of votes beyond the 25, but I don't have 32 right now for cloture. And there are some 45 dilatory amendments stacked on top. It's in select file now. So I would have to have votes that will support cloture on select and votes that will support cloture on final.
Now, cloture, in just layman's terms, is a vote that will allow it to be voted on. Is that
Seizes debate.
okay? Just wanted to make sure, because it's not a commonly used
Right.
term here in the hinterlands of the United States. So that one's waiting in abeyance. And what other ones are kind of held over that are waiting for their moment in time?
Motorcycle helmet bill is on the floor.
Now that's LB 303, and as I understand it, that would exempt those over 21 from wearing a helmet, licensed.
This is not 16 days, isn't it? That's right. Whether
20
it's
or
18
21.
or 21, I can't remember, but I think 21 is right.
And so, in other words, it's under the thought process that an adult should, by the time you get to 21, you should be able to make your own decision on that. Now,
I
would
think
that
there's a
affect?
caveat in there. They have to have a motorcycle safety course.
Okay.
Right.
Now, would that affect any of the highway funds that have always been sort of mixed into this? business?
It's not clear. There are certain number of things that we have to have in place. We have more than we need, so it probably will not.
Because that's, for the
negatively
20 some years I've been in news, that motorcycle helmet law has been bandied about. The people with a bait
Right.
have been, trying to get rid of it, and
Now, on that issue, the proponents are very much trying to make it an economic issue because most of the states around us don't have helmet laws, and because of the big motorcycle convention that's held in South Dakota, we miss out on a lot of people who
driving through.
Right.
Okay. Gee, you can get economic development into just about anything, can't you? And there may be some truth to that. Sturgis is certainly a haven at one time of the year.
Absolutely.
All right, there are a couple of big issues coming up, and one of them is the method of capital punishment. That's kind of a holdover, as I understand. And we have a number of reasons to consider that, and then you always put into the mix Ernie Chambers, Senator Chambers' perennial bill to get rid of the death penalty, and how he kind of works the debate on anything having to do with the death penalty. So, give me your prognosis on, will we change the method of capital punishment to lethal injection this session?
How many days did we say we have?
60.
I doubt that something is going to go through in 60 days.
For those that favor the death penalty, and I think the majority of the state senators do, as at the last poll that I heard taken, then isn't this kind of a no-brainer because of
Because we're the last state.
we're the last state, and there is such a large chance that we will not be able to use the electric chair? I mean, couldn't you get enough votes considering the majority?
The majority of the body would vote for the change.
Right.
The question is whether they'll get a chance to vote on that. There are, we've already recited almost half a dozen that are occupying the same place for the first 20 days of the session when you could actually take up these kinds of issues, because in the last 30 days the budget will drive out everything. Nothing trumps the budget. So when that's in center stage, all the rest of this
Okay,
goes
what
away.
will get through?
The budget.
Some of these.
Besides,
Budget,
well,
well
the budget
done.
has to. You
Well
have to take a responsible position on that. You can't just, say we don't have enough votes to vote on the budget.
I think there is one that will get through, and that is we will revoke the bill that we passed, or a portion of a bill that we passed, which closes LCC in August of
The Lincoln
2004.
Correctional Center.
Lincoln Correction Center. It right now is slated to be closed in August of '04, and I think that that will be reversed, and I think relatively easily.
Now, refresh my memory. This was voted on for close. I mean, they voted to close this because of money, because it's
Yes.
outdated.
It was
mainly
pretty.
money.
It was money, and it was pretty much an end of the session kind of thing, where most states who have had severe fiscal problems have dealt at least part of their problem through closing some correctional facilities. We have not chosen to do that other than a last-minute closing of a small facility in Hastings a couple of years ago. So we hadn't done anything major, and so it was added, kind of tacked on to the budget bill in the last hours of the legislature. And I think that there were a lot of people that did it as much to say we have to do some serious changes in corrections in order to be able to continue financially. But no one, and I didn't support it at that time, but I don't think anybody who did support it felt like it was the best choice, that we were being offered the best choice.
So now they're going to turn around because they feel it's not a prudent thing to do.
The original vote, I think, was this signal that Pam was talking about. Corrections Department, you haven't given us valuable assistance in cuts. You need to make cuts, and you've stonewalled us. We don't know where to make the cuts without your help. We're going to lop off $7 million on the Lincoln Correctional Corrections, and when we come back next year, you're going to be a little bit more forthcoming in where the right cuts will come from.
And you think that will happen?
Yes.
It's already
Oh yeah.
Yes.
happening. Okay, so that's
Lesson learned.
That's kind of a done deal. Anything else that will get through? I mean, obviously things get through the legislature beside the budget.
The point is, you don't know which of these. Some of these will. If you had 100 students just outside that door and 10 seconds to get through, I can't tell you which of the 100 will get through, but some of them will and some of them won't. They all compete against each other for the most valuable resource we have, which is floor time. So they're all in competition
So
with each
can't
other.
y'all just talk a little less? Okay.
Well, but
49
Nice try.
politicians.
Thanks.
but the process.
I know,
If
is
you're
important.
on one side, you think it's great. If you're
Well,
on
I
the other
understand.
side,
That's
you
what
think
the
it's
legislative process is about, is to get
That's
it
right.
all out there.
That's right.
To make sure you've made your points from your side, and hopefully that you will either win or not lose by maybe a great number, or maybe can hold it off. That's part of the strategy too. A lot of this is being held off, and you have to wait and do some debate to wait and see, to see how it plays out in committee or on the floor. Okay, so let's talk about the mental health reorganization,
Okay.
which is a budget money issue, but it is also, I think, perhaps, or at least in the eyes of many, an overdue organizational issue. Just not only where do we send people for mental health help, but how do we organize it? Because money can be involved in that alone too.
Absolutely, and I think that there are some similarities just from a financial standpoint with with the corrections issues that we were talking about. The financial part is really pushing some substantive policy changes that we probably needed to have done anyway. And the same thing I think can be said for the mental health reorganization, that if you were going to invent a system to help people who are mentally ill, would it be to have these huge facilities that, we have like 65 buildings in the regional center system. Use very few of them, but 65 buildings on campuses far away from where these people actually live? Or would you have a system of community-based services, less intensive to give people services?
I'll give you a chance here in just a second, but there's another issue fueling this community-based versus more use of the regional centers, and that is the fact that the Medicaid funding would increase, as I understand, a higher percentage that the Nebraska would get from the federal government if they have more community-based programs. So there's kind of a
Yes,
another...
but I really want to keep saying that the financial may be helping the policy discussion, but really what should be driving what we do is based on what's good for the people who are receiving services.
Okay, we have a senator here from Norfolk, one of the two cities where we have regional centers that we're talking about in this debate. Hastings is the other one, I believe. Those are the big centers. And this is a really, really flashpoint issue in those two cities.
It is, although
Closing one or both of the centers.
it's very difficult right now to talk about what this bill is because no one knows what this bill is.
No.
724 mandated, and 724 is law. 724 mandated that Jim Jensen, who you have had on this program a couple of months ago,
Senator Jensen.
he has to come in with legislation at the beginning of this session that's going to make everything more better.
A new plan.
A
sort
new
of
plan.
a plan, for a comprehensive
That's
plan.
right.
Is there, at least that's the goal, a comprehensive plan for handling mental health administration and treatment in the state. Is that fair to say?
We have facilities that have closed. We have people who are not receiving services, and we're spending $65 million to serve 460 individuals with mental illness in the regional center system right now.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
grimace at that?
This is Norfolk shot right now.
Okay, number one, there's more people involved in that. There may be that many people right now in the regional centers. There's about 170 in Norfolk, and I don't know what the population, much less than that in Hastings and much more than that in Lincoln. Some of those people are what they call MDSOs, mentally disturbed sexual offenders, and they're going to be warehoused somewhere because you will not have them on the streets. The system is what needs to be examined as to when someone has a problem and say is taken into EPC, emergency protective custody, because he's a danger to himself or to the public in general. Something has to be done to determine exactly what his problems are, his or her problems are. And to do that, we're not talking about those who can be readily identified from previous, but the new intakes, which compromise a good portion of the population, have to be diagnosed. They have to have a regimen of prescription medicines.
Mm-hmm.
They have to see if those work, because sometimes you get it right on the second or third or fourth try. And then he has to be trained, among other things, to take the medication. There is an article in the
That would
Omaha World
happen
Herald this morning.
in any case. The
brings that-
issue is what makes, I guess what you're trying to get to is that you feel that those need to be, those kinds of intake of serious potential problems, danger
Yes.
to themselves and others, need to be intook
They need to be taken into, yeah.
at the regional centers, and that's the only appropriate place. Others say that maybe
Yeah.
isn't the only.
Once they have had that training and that diagnosis and that medication, they then can go elsewhere for the medication, and most people who have been through the regional centers have done this. And that is a success story, and it's more than that, than the 400 and some. There's 105 outpatients at the regional center all the time.
I know, Senator McDonald, you're concerned about the whole issue of what if, and this isn't going to happen this session, obviously we've figured out that they're not going to close anything right away unless there's some sort of emergency if you can't get these other bills through. Maybe. But you're concerned the fact that if community-based programming is suddenly that's the push, that particularly in rural areas, say where you come from, that the hospitals can't handle this or that there won't be something in place. And so
Well,
that's a concern of yours.
What happens in a community-based process is the likely place for those people to go is to the hospital, and to have them reserve a few beds for them to warehouse these patients until they can be transferred somewhere else, or even maintain the care there, which they do not have the resources to do that. Do they have the beds? Possibly, but do they have the type of beds that are needed for those that are in danger to themselves or to others? Do they have the resources with nurses and the people, the professionals there that can take care of them? Most of those rural hospitals have a difficult time just staffing their hospitals, and they certainly don't have the type of employment that would warrant mental
expertise.
Yeah, mental people. And when I was in Hastings, they have a difficult time getting psychiatrists to even locate in the town of Hastings. Some of them are coming in from Kansas City. Some of them are coming in from Texas.
And that's a regional center town.
At the regional center, because they don't want to locate in a small community like Hastings. So let's look at putting something out in Scotts Bluff. If they can't come to Hastings, they're certainly not going to go out to anything more rural than that.
We have less than a minute, Senator Landis, since you are chairman of the Revenue Committee. Obviously, there's revenue involved in any plan. And can you see that anything happening tomorrow on this?
No, I can't. We'll all be watching what comes in for revenue. But we have done to our revenue system the things that needed to do to modernize them. There is not an obvious tax base expansion available for new money. My guess is we are going to wind up having to make do with what we have now for rates and base.
All right, and we have to wrap up for now, but we're going to have you back, well, for us in just a minute, but for the viewers next week to talk about revenue and taxes. I want to thank Senators McDonald, Landis, Tyson, who I shall never forget again, and Senator Brown. And we'll see you back next week for part 2, and we're going to talk money. Join us next week.
To view this edition of Consider This or past programs, visit our website at unotv.unomaha.edu. For comments or questions, call 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. Consider This is a production of UNO Television.